It's a pleasure to speak with both of you. I'm a big fan. Really loved Bud. That was such a moving, tense film and says so much about hypocrisy, cancel culture. Just beautiful film. And this is
Wow.
such a cool project. I love you two working together. It's great. So I'll start first off. There's a fine balance here between sort of making fun of liberalism or sort of the far woke ideology sort of thing, but also being sympathetic to the kind of uh, universal broken nature of people trying to do the right thing. How do you find that balance in the show? Because it works. What was the struggle there? I'll start, I guess, with Zach.
Well, first of all, I just want to say I'm swooning a little bit. First, thank you for watching Bud. Thank you for saying such kind things about it. And thank you for asking such a thoughtful question about the show. Um, that's really touching. I feel touched. I feel very touched. I would say I think you kind of hit the nail on the head, which is like what we didn't want to do was just sort of drag out a tired kind of archetype of a crunchy lefty and make easy fun of it. I think what we wanted to do is because we are basically the people we're depicting, right? We wanted to be as unsparing as possible in our depiction of the more obnoxious parts of people like us, but also try to be connected to the sort of core vulnerabilities from which those obnoxious behaviors originate. And I think it's one thing, working with Mike Judge, one thing I always love about Mike Judge is I don't ever feel like his satire is looking down on the subject. It never feels like he's kind of throwing stones from the top of the hill. It always feels like the kind of essential point of view is, aren't we all ridiculous assholes, but also lovable? On a good day, that's how I feel about myself. It's like I'm a hypocrite. I'm disappointing in all kinds of ways. I fall short of who I profess to be and wish to be. And yet I hope that the people who love me will keep loving me because I need them to, and I love them back. So I think that was kind of a core point of view. But Brandon, will you, or maybe you have a different question that you want Brandon to start?
No, no, go ahead, Brandon. But that's beautiful. I mean, I think part of the fatal flaw of trying to be a great person is thinking that there is a great person to aspire to be. uh, yeah, Brandon, anything to add?
Yeah, this is to add on to Zach's. I think it's more like that we don't find the character's idealism absurd. We think the ways in which they fail to live up to it can be funny and relatable to us, and the ways in which oftentimes you'll have an ideal and the way you'll fight for it will be sort of the easiest, most convenient way, and not necessarily the way that requires any sort of personal sacrifice. And that is something I really identify with, but also find funny.
There's a lot of humor to be mined there. I'm curious. I love the look of the show. It almost reminds me of Anomalisa. I know it's Shadow Machine, and they're fantastic, but it has the same sort of quiet humor and uncanny relatableness of Anomalisa too. What did you have in mind? What were your hopes, and were they achieved? I hope so.
We had very high hopes because we knew Shadow Machine's work before we started working with them, and we loved Pinocchio. But honestly, as high as our hopes were, they did surpass them. The first time we saw a screen test of the two of the characters doing a scene together, it was so emotional. They felt they were so vulnerable, and it was so funny. It really got us excited. We're like, wow, this is going to be even better than we thought it was going to be. The specificity and the acting that they're able to get out of puppets is incredible. And so we were very excited. And to a certain degree, it affected how we went back and rewrote scripts even, because we were like, oh, if they can do this, then we might have to steer it in even a more subtle direction.
I think to your point earlier too, like we're all being whittled down all the time now, whittled down by ourselves, algorithmically whittled down on social media, politically whittled down into, there's a kind of eagerness to reduce people to a single thing. Be like, oh, that's this person. This is what they are. And I think something we wanted to push up against in this and everything we make is that people are usually a gazillion things all at once, and they don't really make sense together, but they're are very beautiful and maddening. So one of the things that's nice about stop motion is each character is puppeteered by like 30 different people. So a kind of multifacetedness, a multidimensionality is bred into the process because each person is literally 30 animators plus the person who voiced them. So the kind of multiplicity of identities is really like a literal fact of the production process.
And I love that. And the theme of an interview, too, kind of goes to this desire to whittle people down. Like, I have 8 minutes to speak to both of you. I, could discuss this for 4 hours at a bar. How do you do that? So, as much as I'd love to talk about so much more with the process, I'm curious, a fun question for both of you, I guess starting with Zach. What's the worst or most awkward interview you participated in? You don't have to name names, or you can pass entirely.
Oh, interesting. I mean, usually the worst interview has been because of me. It's like, it's something I will say and then just look back and be like, that was monumentally pretentious. Or like, I accidentally said something dreadful about a group of people I've never met. Or it's usually the cringe is inward pointing, because it's such a weird thing. Especially, I'm a little bit more comfortable now. But when I was first starting out, just the terror of, like, have you ever seen like teenagers who feel socially awkward so they get either loud or mean or kind of flagrantly artificial? I feel like when I was first starting out, not deliberately, but I would end up just being like, I don't know, more acidic than I meant to be, or more ironic than I actually am, or there's just a kind of, when you feel like there's a way to do something and you don't know the way to do the thing, it can often dredge up your worst kind of tics and habits and coping strategies, I think.
And that does tie back, I think, to, again, the characters in our show, where their worst behavior, you can see it comes from their insecurities and their fear, and that they're not necessarily bad people. It's just they're scared people, and that's often what causes our worst behaviors.
Yeah, overcorrection a lot of the time. Thank you both so much for discussing this. I have to wrap, but it's a pleasure.
Lovely.
It was
Thank
a pleasure
you so
to talk to
much. Have a great weekend, guys. Thank you.
You too.